Hey guys, James here from Replica Reviews. Now, today we're doing a review on a gun that I've wanted to do for a very long time. I've had this gun here for over a year, so I'd like to think anyway, I've got a really good view on what it's like, one, to use this gun, and two, what it's like to actually own it, because I know a lot of reviews are done straight out of the box. And it is the Weihrauch HW100 KT LM, which is a bit of a mouthful, but we'll break it down. The HW100 was the first rifle that, or the first pre-charge rifle, should we say, that Weihrauch did. Up until recently, it's been the only one. They haven't really done any variants or changes of things. There's subtle changes in the stocks, but nothing been too major. So that's the HW100 bit. The KT is the carbine thumb hole, which is the type of stock that you get with a gun. So you can see it's a carbine rifle, so it needs a carbine thumb hole stock. You see the thumb hole in the back. And the LM basically is because there's a laminate. Being a bit of a magpie, I've gone for the fancy version. So rather than the walnut stock, which is an option, I've gone for the slightly more expensive, but in my view, prettier laminate. Now they have released a new version which is the adjustable, but this is just a normal carbine thumb hole stock. And I'll tell you what, it's the comfiest stock I've ever used. Now a bit of background of this rifle and why I picked it, and then we'll go into the close-ups and we'll work around the gun and give you a full technical sort of debrief as such. Now about a year and a half ago now, I went to an open day for the gun room down in Devon. They did their open day at the Salcombe Shooting School. And pretty much all the guns on test that day were HW100s, and they had a little competition with knockdowns, and they had the KT there, and I set a really good score, and I absolutely loved the gun. It was just one of those ones, put the magazine in, lock it forward, and it just worked beautifully. And I went in that day being a day state shooter. It's all I've ever owned, all I've ever shot, and I left with a pre-order on one of these down because they weren't released at the time, or at least the laminate wasn't. And yeah, I basically bought one and I've used it ever since. Now I work as a pest controller, so this gets used every single day, and in the year and a half that I've owned it, it has not skipped a beat once. So anyway, less of me blabbling on about how amazing this rifle is, and let's zoom in and I will show you exactly what makes this rifle what it is. Okay, so as you can see out the box, this is near enough what you get. The only thing that I have changed that you'll see on the front of the rifle here is I've now got a Hug It Belita moderator. I will say the Weihrauch mod that comes stock with the gun is the better moderator. It's a lot quieter, but I went for length, which is why I've got the Belita, but it's still a very quiet rifle. Now being the carbine, if you do take the moderator off, it does give an almighty crack. It is an incredibly loud gun. But yeah, I mean, that is what it is. And I've topped it off on the top here with a Sidewinder, made obviously by Hawk. That is my scope of choice. Superb scope, a little bit overkill for sort of working inside buildings. But for this rifle and its current sort of guise as such, it is absolutely perfect. And I've just used sports match mounts on the top and a little sports mat SP2 that you can probably just see just in the top of the screen there. Now, as I said at the start of the video here, this is the KT. So you get the carbine cylinder on the front, and then obviously the thumb hole stock here. You can get sporter variants, and you can get the plain walnut. If the laminate isn't your thing, there are different options for you. But that was the sort of the method and the one that I wanted. Now, being the carbine, you don't get the shots that you would out of the full length. However, with this is stock as such, I get 4 magazines worth, which equates to about 56 shots, which for most sort of pest control situations, 56 shots is more than enough. Now, some shoots that I've been on, you do have to go back, obviously fill up. But filling up is really easy. But again, we'll move into that in a bit. So that's basically just an overview of the rifle. So we'll move in now. I'll show you basically sort of the trigger, how it loads, and also sort of how to fill the gun itself. And then we'll just move on and we'll do a bit of target shooting as well. I've got it zeroed using 8.44 grain day state Sovereign pellets. So we'll put a target out at 35 yards. Only seems fair if the magazine can hold 14 shots. We'll do the grouping with 14 shots. But before we do that, let's obviously move in and just look at the finer details. Okay, so a little bit of a weird place to start, but it's actually one of my favourite parts of the rifle, so we're going to start here. And as you can see, this is a fully adjustable trigger. Now there's little Allen key ports that you can just see in the bottom of the trigger guard there, and obviously the little adjustment points in the top of the trigger, and you can adjust this thing really smoothly. Yeah, it's one of those ones. If you want to use it as a target rifle, I would say adjust it so, whisper and it will go off. Me, as a pest control, as a target shooter, I try and get a bit of both. So about a pound trigger is what I like. It's just enough to be safe when you're out hunting, but also just crisp enough to, you know, you're not going to pull. But as I say, fully adjustable match trigger, and by far one of the nicest triggers I've ever used. So we'll move on, basically how to load it, show you the safety, things like that, and also the only upgrade that I think you will ever need for this gun. Okay guys, so now we're at sort of the day-to-day working end of the gun. This is the bit that you're going to interact with the most if you own one of these, and obviously it's the bit that really drew me to this rifle. The simplicity in the Germans' engineering is just absolutely just phenomenal. So anyway, less blabbling. To load the magazine, and it does come with two 14-shot magazines, it really couldn't be easier. You simply just make sure this latches to the rear, pull the cocking lever to the back, so it cocks like so, and you'll see those two little bars in there have scooted off. And then with the teeth to the rear, just place it in, lock it forward, and then the bolt comes down like so. It really is that easy. And then to reload, you obviously just go back, forth, and so on. Now it does have a system on it, as you would have just seen there, that will not allow you to double load this rifle. So if you've got a round in the chamber and you think, oh, have I loaded it? There's no harm in just bringing the lever back, loading it again. If the magazine doesn't work, it was already loaded, and it really is that simple. Also, you may notice as well, obviously, when you're done with your shooting, if I'm on my last shot, or like for the moment, I haven't actually needed to fire anything, pull the latch back, bring your magazine out, squeeze the trigger in, and you can decock the rifle, which is just amazing. Now, the only thing that I wasn't really sold on with this sort of part of the rifle was the safety catch. And obviously you can see now it's decocked, I can't activate the safety. If I cock the rifle, the safety now functions like so. And I mean, that is great. Obviously, once it's cocked, you can see that you can just flick it between the two. Really, really positive engagement. It is worth noting. It just, once the safety is in a position, that's where it's staying, unless you physically move it. It's not like the Wildcats, where the safety can be a little bit wishy-washy or fall off. It does kind of move around. And like I say, that is great. But for me, I just like the option of having the safety that you can manually use whether the gun is loaded or not. It's just that extra peace of mind, especially when people are walking around you. And you can see, actually, it's on safe. And, you know, I know, obviously, when a gun's unloaded, it can't shoot. But it's just nice to be able to visibly see it. And note, it's a very, very common thing for rifles. And Weihrauch have chosen to do it this way. And that's, you know, very much their decision. But as I say, safety catch, very, very positive and very, very clear. Obviously, if you can see red, it's dead. And if it's on white, it's safe as houses, so to speak. So that's the safety catch. And as I say, really, really simple. So at this point, you might be thinking, James, why have you zoomed in on this? But on a lot of the forums, you see people asking, I'm picking up a Weihrauch on Tuesday. What upgrades do I need? And the honest answer is the only upgrade I've done to this gun that's actually kind of made it better is I've added this, and that is the little QD stud here. It replaces one of the stock bolts that goes into the band that you can see here. Obviously, it does have a barrel band, and it just allows you to mount bipods and things a lot easier. And to be honest, that is all it needs to do. As I say, and we'll say later on, the chronograph test of this rifle when we did it, there was about a 5 foot per second variance across 14 shots, out the box, completely untuned, and in my eyes, it hadn't actually been sort of bedded in as such. So why change anything when it's not broken? But as I say, that was the only upgrade I did. So anyway, we'll move on, only a short bit, and we'll look at how to fill the gun, the probe, and the gauge on the end of the cylinder and whatnot. Okay, guys, so here on the end of the cylinder, you can see obviously we've got our gauge. You know, it's pretty kind of self-explanatory. It's got a max fill pressure of about 200. That's what I fill mine to anyway. And then when it gets to around to about 90, it does drop off regulator. Obviously, being a regulated gun, as soon as you drop past that point, your shots will fall off the face of the earth. As I said earlier, you get about 4 magazines worth per film with the carbine, which is about 56 shots, if I remember off the top of my head correctly. And then once, obviously, you've fired your shots, you just push out this little bar here, push your probe in, and then when it's fully inserted in, fill the gun up, and then just push your bar back in. And that just stops any dirt, any gripe, anything like that getting in the gun, obviously, during the field. You know, shooting in the field, it can be a mucky business, and that little bar there, it's easily lost, but it's definitely worth just keeping an eye out for. And as I say, really, really simple to do, and one of the easier guns that I've used. There's no kind of faffing around with Foster fittings or anything like that. Just push the probe in, fill it up, drain the air, off you go. And as I say, 56 shots, can't really go too far wrong with that. While we're on the subject of filling and air and all the rest of it, it's actually worth noting the cylinder here, when you first pick the rifle up, when it comes in the box, will be removed. It's not going to be screwed onto the gun or anything like that. It is separate, and that means two things. One, it will actually hold charge when it's unscrewed. So if you're really sad and you actually want to carry multiple cylinders, you can. But it also means if you have to do any maintenance on the gun, you can actually take the cylinder off and not have to worry about having the cylinder attached to your gun. Now, if you go for any of the optional upgrades, A&M do the cylinders, they aren't valved. So if you take the A&M cylinder off, it will drain the air, and you do actually have to drain it before you take it off, otherwise you'll ruin the gun. So as I say, the cylinder will come out when you first pick it up in the box. Don't be too spooked out when you see that the cylinder is not attached. That is perfectly standard. And obviously, you know, there is a shelf life with these things. I'm yet to find it. So let's move on to one last thing that I just want to point out before we move on to actually the firing test. And yeah, let's quickly crack on. So one last thing that I just want to really kind of drive home just before we move into the firing section of this video is when you buy one of these guns in the UK, make sure you have Hull Cartridge stamped on the side and that your rifle has only come from a Hull Cartridge approved retailer. My reason for that is there are shops, there are companies in the UK that are selling guns that aren't printed Hull Cartridge. They bought them in through the back door, so on and so forth. If you have a problem with your gun, which I'm pretty adamant you won't, you will not get warranty support unless it's got this Hull Cartridge stamp on the side. Obviously, they're the importers, and if it hasn't come through them, they don't know what it is, and they will charge you. If you've got a problem, they will charge you, and rightly so. Like I say, there are companies out there and shops, I'm not going to name any of them, just because I don't obviously want to upset anybody, but if your Weihrauch doesn't have Hull Cartridge printed on the side, do not buy it. No matter how nice it is, find somebody further afield or your next local RFD that's got an account with Hull and get one of their stamped guns, because you will not regret it. Okay guys, so now for the fun bit. Obviously the bit that a lot of you want to see. It's great having a nice looking gun, but does it actually work? So I've loaded my magazine up with 14 Day-State Sovereign pellets, obviously JSB exacts really, 8.44 grain, 177. I've got a target out at 35 yards. We've got a bench rest on the front here because I don't have my bipod with me. So we're just going to load up, as I say, really simple to do, like so. Loaded, easy as that. And let's fire off 14 rounds. Rookie error. $14 shots. Let's go and have a look at the target. Okay, so I just wanted to include this clip as well before we summarise up the shooting. There's a bell all the way down there at 100 yards. All right. So we've all seen close range shooting. Let's see what the Weihrauch can do at 100 yards. So we're aiming for a little. It's like an old welding air tank. As I say, 100 yards. Let's give it a try. Now hopefully, I don't know if you can hear that little ting in the background is basically hitting the 100-yard bell. So yeah, it's a very accurate rifle. Okay guys, so that's pretty much the review all done. There's not really much more for me to say. I've covered what I think are the main important things anyway. I know this isn't the most up-to-date, posh version of a review. We don't have fancy software, we don't have fancy cameras, but it's a real-world review for a gun that is just going to excel in the real world. I own this gun personally. I bought it with my own money, so it was my choice to get it. And I tell you what, I'll be the first to tell you if I hated it. But this is by far the best rifle I've ever bought. And if I wasn't a bit of a magpie, this would be the only rifle I would ever buy. Out of the box, it's been amazing. 11.4 foot per pound. When we chronographed it with a 5 foot per second variant across the shot string, which out of the box for an untuned, unbroken in gun, whatever you want to call it, I thought was amazing. So, as I say, it is what it is. It's an amazing gun that will outshoot me, you, anybody. It will last a lifetime as well. One of the guys I shoot with has got one of the original full-length sporters. He's had his now for about 12 years. No problems at all. I mean, you know, what does that say? The Germans know how to do engineering correctly. This gun is just so simple to use. It's unbelievable. Now, I could waffle on about how amazing this gun is all day long, but I'm not going to. What I will do is I will show you the target quickly, and the proof is very much in the pudding. That's 14 shots, 35 yards. I will put a picture of this at the end, just after the credits, just a little picture for those of you that want to kind of examine it a little bit closer and see exactly what the group was. But the long and short is I can cover it with my little finger. 5p piece groups at 35 yards. Absolute doddle, unsorted ammunition. Value for money wise, this gun for me at the moment is by far the best one on the market. You get your 2 magazines, you get your charging probe, and a couple other bits and pieces as well. And all for, I think, about 850 quid all in. Can't really fault that at all. So, you know, as I say, I could waffle on about how amazing this gun is all day long, but I'm not going to. If you've got any questions, any comments, anything like that, feel free to put them in the box below. We will probably do another follow-up video with this involved. You know, you'll see the Weihrauch on this channel hundreds of times going on from this point. But as I say, for now, this is the review that we put together. I've been trying to do it for a while, but could never really kind of do it justice. So hopefully you've enjoyed what you've seen today and learned something about the new Weihrauch HW100 KT. If you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments box below. And obviously, if you want to see more from us, feel free to subscribe as well. We do have a Facebook page, which you will see loads of our pictures, news, this, that, the other, all on the Facebook page. So feel free to go and check that out. Type in Replica Reviews in your search bar and we will pop back up. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I will definitely bring this back to your screens again and we'll do more videos. But until then, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.